we're going live. We are live. And
hello.
There we have it. All right.
Hello, Internet.
Hello, Internet. That's right. Folks, first off, good evening. Happy New Year. Andre Chumley here with Make Weird Music. And it wouldn't be me if there wasn't the slight technical hiccup. But we're all good. We're a minute late. I'll take it. Great to be here. Great to see some of your, I'm imagining your smiling faces. Thanks so much. First off, let me say, wow. And we'll say this a few times, I'm sure. Happy birthday to the maestro. Happy birthday to one and only John McLaughlin. In these times, sometimes you hang out and just chill with some friends, and now we do it a bit online. So I thought, let's get together and talk about the maestro and share some stories. We're going to start right out with two gentlemen here who are right in the tri-state New York area. I'm down in synth capital USA, Asheville, North Carolina. I'm going to start out with a man who has played guitar around the world. He's one of the members of Testament. He's got the Alex Skolnick trio, and he's recently part of PACT, which stands for Percy, Alex, Kenny, and Tim. Fantastic new band. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Skolnick. How are you, Alex?
Woo. Thank you. Good to be here. Great to see you guys. This
awesome.
Is like it's just like we're hanging out in the living room, except we're in different living rooms, and
we're in different living rooms.
and we're broadcasting, and
That's
we got
it.
folks watching, which is very cool. And it looks
That's
like we
it.
have a guest joining
have a
us right
guest.
now.
We have a guest popping in. We got a couple of guests. Everyone's arriving.
Welcome.
And we have, what a beautiful surprise. What a wonderful moment whenever we see Chester in the room. Mr. Chester Thompson. Ladies and gentlemen,
Hey, Chester.
We've got, we just met a guitarist.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, Chester.
Hey, Chester.
Hey, guys.
If there's
How you doing,
anyone,
Alex.
Good to meet you, man.
Alex, Chester, if there's anyone out there who doesn't know this gentleman, well, get yourself Googling. But I'm kidding, because anyone who's here at Make Weird Music knows this man. A lot of you met him, or if you're old enough, or you heard recordings of him with Jack McDuff. You might have heard him with The Mothers in the early 70s. You might have heard him with Weather Report, Genesis, the Fire Merchants.
You're just saying I'm old.
Well, I was going to say, how are you? You look just like you always did, man. But this is a gentleman who you've heard on so many records, including a bunch of Chester Thompson trio records. And there's one coming out this year. We're going to talk about all of that. Chester Thompson, how are you feeling, man?
Hey, man, I'm good. I woke up again,
You woke up.
That's it. I'm all right. I'm not complaining.
Chester, you're not old. You're an elder statesman of the music.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that.
A seasoned pro.
On a good day, yeah.
Plus, you were there when this shit was going down.
Some of it, yeah.
Amazing.
Some
That's
of it.
amazing.
I feel like I came late to the party because, the Mahavishnu stuff. When I first heard that stuff, I had no idea or dream that I'd end up in LA in a couple of years with Frank. That was just not even on my radar. I was actually in school. I had been on the road straight out of high school for about 5 years and decided to go back to Baltimore and go to college, and it was during that period. So, when you're in school, you're in listening mode, and I just, somebody turned me on to Mahavishnu, and that was it. It was like, yeah, messed with my head pretty good on that stuff, man.
So you heard the band, because one of the things I want to ask you, and you've said this in interviews, you and Napoleon and maybe a couple other people, you saw Mahavishnu, right? From the side of the stage?
From the side of the stage. It was our second, Nappy and I joined Frank's band at the same time. And so it was our second gig. We did a warm-up gig in Austin, Texas, a place that's no longer there, but it was called the Armadillo World Headquarters. If you
Perfect
remember that.
Yeah.
Sure.
But the second gig was like the big gig, and it was at the Auditorium Theater in Chicago.
Okay.
And Mahavishnu was there the night before, so we all went. And we ended up watching it from the side of the stage. It was the most intense thing I had ever witnessed. I had to keep walking away. It was so intense. It was like, I mean, I physically felt it, you know. And Billy, oh man, Billy, I fully expected the floor toms to jump in the air because I'd never seen anybody hit a drum that hard in my life. You know, it was like he was built like a linebacker, you know. And then the next night, well, actually that same night after their gig, a bunch of us went over to a party. I'm not sure who it was, guy in town. I don't know if he was a promoter or what, but he had a loft in downtown Chicago, and he had instruments set up. And man, Billy, John McLaughlin, you know, and George Duke, they were all over there jamming, you know, and I'm just standing on the side, mouth open, listening to this stuff, you know. It was pretty new to me at that time. I mean, I was dabbling in odd times, but you know, when I got in Frank's band, man, the stuff I was doing was so elementary. It was like, oh, okay, this is what it's about. Fortunately, Ralph Humphrey was in that band, and he really made it a lot easier. He taught me his method of dealing with odd times because he had been the main drummer and, oh goodness, the trumpet player, Don, it'll come to me in a moment.
Okay.
Don Bias,
Huh?
Donald Byrd,
No, it was a big band, and they,
Don Ellis.
Don Ellis. And so he was doing that, and I guess he had done that for like 5 years or something. So the stuff with Frank was pretty much, you know, as they say today, in his wheelhouse. And he, you know, when he told me, it's like, man, it's just all twos and threes. It was like, oh, okay, you know, we can make that groove, you know. And but yeah, it was like, you know, but even knowing that, and even having rehearsed with Frank for a month, that was still mind blowing to hear that band and what they were doing. And I mean, I knew a lot of the music from listening a lot, but to see it live was just, oh my goodness, you know.
Sure. Now take us
Wow.
back. Take us back a click or two before that, because when In a Silent Way and Tony Williams' Emergency and
Hmm.
Bitches Brew, all those came out around the same
Right.
time. John's on all of those. Talk to us about what that was like going on in the background for you as players.
Well, I mean, again, you know, it was just a fresh new world. You know, I'm trying to think of another moment like that where there was so much new, fresh stuff coming at you at the same time. And I can't really think of another time quite to that extent. Um, yeah, one of my favorite albums, I don't know if it was the worst recorded album or was just so distorted, which was that Emergency album, that double
Right.
album with Tony and John. And,
Yeah.
you know, man, that stuff.
That's how loud they were.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, I had, you know, say when I could listen past the distortion, what they were playing was just absolutely phenomenal, you know. And yeah, so you had that. I guess the early Return to Forever came a little after that, kind of. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
because Bitches Brew was like, you know, I mean, that was, you know, that opened up everybody's head to, I mean, well, just, you know, the fact that Miles was willing to go there, you know.
Sure.
And it's funny because I finally met Miles when I was touring with Weather Report. And, you know, I mean, I'm kind of, you know, obviously I'm playing with like Miles alumni, you know, so so Miles came to one of the gigs in New York, and you know, Joe and Wayne were probably the most confident, accomplished musicians I'd ever played with or met in my life. And when Miles showed up, and they were like two little kids, it's like, man, Dad's here, you know, we gotta, you know, it was, I mean, I had to laugh, man. It was like suddenly became sheepish around Miles, you know.
I'm sure.
Wow.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so it's like, and then at that moment, I think I really felt the thing, you know. It's like, oh, okay, this is like he's dad with this whole scene, you know.
Well, yeah. That's a great way to put it. And as you're saying, I love what you said, that you really can't think of another time period that was like that. That little window, right?
Not really. While I was playing with Weather Report, I kind of got seriously introduced to Brazilian music because Joe and Wayne absolutely loved it. I had done some playing prior to that. Was it prior? No, I guess no, I guess it was yeah. Well, during the time of Weather Report, no, a little bit before that,
Okay.
I'd started doing some stuff with Airto and Flora Purin,
Wow.
and so I got to
Cool.
meet and record with Hermeto Pasquale,
Mhm.
Oh,
and
wow. That's
so around
very
this,
nice.
and then while I'm with Weather Report, I got to meet Milton Nascimento, and he had a drummer with him at the time, Roberto da Silva, Robertinho, they called him, a little bitty guy. Oh my goodness, what a player! Never, I don't feel like he ever got his due. Maybe in Brazil he got his due, but outside of there, people just don't know about this guy.
Yeah.
Just the freest pocket for days, but
Hmm.
that wonderful samba kind of pocket, but not traditional by any means. And so that for me, that was a pretty exciting world. Just being in those circles, because I remember the first time hearing. Have you ever heard "Native Dancer" by
Mhm.
Wayne Shorter?
Wayne. Yeah.
Sure.
So the first time I heard that, the listening party was at Joe's house,
Mm.
and I went not knowing what to expect, and man, and of course Joe had state of the art sound system in his house, and when that hit those speakers, man, I was just floored. It was like that was that was probably maybe the freshest thing in a different way. Mahavishnu and all of that stuff was fresh for the power and the
Right.
intricacies, but then here comes this whole other side, which was just refreshing. I mean, beautiful,
Hmm.
powerful, but in a not understated, but just another flavor, just a complete other flavor. And so that whole period, early to mid '70s, man, what a time.
What a time. And again, we thank you for being one of the co-creators of all this stuff. I mean, when we talk about Bitches Brew and the fact that many groups came out of that, but the big three, as we call it, you just mentioned Return of Forever before, of course, Mahavishnu, and Weather Report. And I mean, those records you played on, those tours you did, we thank you so much, because what's cool, and I want to ask you this, is that we have this whole new generation. It's so
Mhm.
cool right now with Thundercat and Lewis Cole and
Right,
all these
right,
Snarky Puppy.
Snarky Puppy. Yeah.
Yeah, I know
absolutely.
you've been checking that out, and of course, um, I sometimes I pronounce your son's name wrong. Akil, is that his name?
Akil, yeah.
Akil. And folks, let me give a shout out right now. In that same generation of these incredible new players, make sure you Google Akil Thompson. Akil Thompson is well, Chester's done many amazing collaborations over these decades. That's one of his greatest. I've been checking out Akil's music. Wow,
Oh, cool,
this
cool.
kid plays. I don't know what instrument does he not play.
He doesn't play any wind instruments,
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
but
But
Hmm.
yeah,
but talk to us about. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Talk to us about this next generation, including Akil's music for a minute.
well, I mean, he's part of this whole new generation. They're all multi instrumentalists. Well, a lot of them are. Him and there's another guy who I only just heard for the first time, and I got to hear him on two different instruments in 2 nights in a row. A guy named Hamilton Harden. Have you heard of him?
I'll look him
Hmm.
up. I'll look him up after this.
So
But
Kirk
no.
Whalum plays me this big band album, and it's like, hey man, this is Hamilton. Like, what's he playing? Everything.
Well,
He's not only the rhythm section. He's like a very accomplished
wow.
wind player, sax, woodwinds, and brass. So he actually
Oh
did
my
a big
God.
band album with him playing and
That's it.
man, it was smoking. It was not, I mean, if you know Kirk, Kirk Whalum, I guess his career seems to be in smooth jazz, but man, Kirk and I have set up, I had a studio here in outside of Nashville for a while on a farm. I just thought I wanted to open up, get in the studio business. I found out that's wasn't for me, but anyway,
Yeah. Not for everyone.
no, I'd rather
No.
be on the other side of the glass, and
No. Same. Same
but
here.
anyway, he used to come down, and I mean, one day we must have played giant steps for like an hour, and I don't think he
Wow.
ever repeated himself. And we played it in seven. We just swung it. We did. He could write a book on jazz. He's been studying that thing for years,
Okay.
and it's effortless when you hear him play it. It's like what I mean, well, Alex, I mean, guys that live in that world, man, that's not the easiest tune to solo on.
Oh yeah.
I mean, well, when you listen to the original, it's not like they had any trouble with it, but he's such an incredible straight ahead player as well as funky as they come. And so when he told me about Hamilton Hardin, and him and my son are like each other's biggest fan club. It's like my son's the whole rhythm section.
Yeah.
I'll throw this out there and leave it alone. A good way to check him out is something called Akil Thompson Jazz from Home.
Okay.
An organization here in Nashville, at Nashville Jazz Workshop, had a bunch of us do live streams from home because there were no live concerts going on.
Sure.
So that'll give you a real good picture of what he does. I mean, I know what he does, and it messed me up when I saw that. I had no idea, it was going there. But
so we'll send people to do some research there.
And Hamilton Hardin is the other guy. And he's a one-man big band. It sounds.
Yeah, well, he does a lot of writes a lot of string arrangements. But I saw him playing one night, playing keyboards, and it was amazing. Then the next night, I saw him playing bass with Kirk Whalum.
Oh my God!
And like my son, he can't tell you which is his main instrument.
Well, there's an amazing list of folks, and we just said some of them.
Oh,
and
man.
We want some of you folks to do your homework, because the point here is the long shadow that all of you guys have thrown. But John McLaughlin, we're here, of course, 80th birthday for those of you who are just tuning in. And
that's mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing. But I want to bring it full circle and say, not only are you still doing music, but John's still doing music. And we've got, I want to make sure, because we always...
I'm not quite in that age group. Getting close.
No. One of the things I want to make sure people know is that John is still doing music. We're not just talking about the past here. And I'd like you to go, make weird music. We always talk about Bandcamp. And please go to John's Bandcamp.
Okay.
Because he's got a new record. This record is called Liberation Time, and we're gonna flirt with the copyright people. And hear
hello, copyright people.
Just the beginning of it.
Wow.
Wow. Just wow. All right. The copyright police come after us.
Yeah.
But I just want to give people a taste. And a couple of things. I want to get some of your thoughts, because I know you guys have heard this. One thing that jumped out at me right away, and it's a thread in John's music for these 50 years, melody. Wow. Right away, you're hit with this beautiful melody, singable. You can... so the man has always touched us with melody, still doing it. This is his first completely email album, as he was saying, because it was done during lockdown. But yet it sounds so cohesive, so beautiful. We didn't get a proper introduction before, but I want to go now and get some thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, drummer, composer, band leader, and someone who has a band for over 20 years now called the Mahavishnu Project. This band has been endorsed by all 5 of what we call the classic 5, the first 5 guys.
The OGs.
The OGs. And Greg's band brought Jan Hammer out of retirement to play some Mahavishnu music. Ladies and gentlemen, amazing. Greg Bendian.
Yeah.
How you doing, Greg?
Nice,
give us your thoughts on hearing this new record and this new vibe.
Well, it's it shows that John is sort of timeless. I think that was the impression that I came away with the first time, because it's very much his world of sounds, which would include Indian music or include, Coltrane impressions. So he covers the gamut of different styles that he's interested in, that he's always brought together. So it's a beautifully recorded record. He plays great on it. It's just inspiring because the guy just is unstoppable. And this is what he sounds like at 79, turning 80. So yeah. I mean, I specialized in the early music of John and our project, but he's never stopped.
No, he really hasn't. And I want people, again, if you go to the Bandcamp, which is a way to support the independent musician, that's one of our missions here at Make Weird Music. And I want to say another shout out, because John's past, I lose track. I think he's got about 8 records out now on Abstract Logix, which is an incredible label. And I always murder his name too. Please say Shovik's name. Shovik Dutta.
Shovik Dutta.
Shovik Dutta. Sorry about that. Shovik Dutta is a beautiful human being who runs Abstract Logix. If you don't know that label, go check it out. Logix with an X on the end. All kinds of some of our favorite musicians here at Make Weird Music are on that label. But he has released the past, again, almost 10 John records in a row. So it's, you're supporting a great independent record company, and you're directly supporting John with Bandcamp. What's also remarkable on this record, and Greg, I remember you had said, and I thought the same thing, this nods to the Electric Guitarist record a little bit, because it's got so many incredible new players on there. Some are new to us. Some are folks like Vinny Colaiuta and Etienne Mbap, Gary Husband on piano and drums. Sam Burgess on bass. Talk to us a little bit about that through line that you see to Guitarist, because we love that album, Electric Guitarist.
I saw the Electric Guitarist tour, and it was the first One Truth band. So it was T.M. Stevens on bass, Sunship on drums, Chester.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. And Shankar on violin, Stu Goldberg keys. And they were playing the material from Electric Guitarist and classic Mahavishnu. I mean, they opened with Meeting of the Spirits, for God's sake. So, it was like John back on electric, and it was after years of Shakti, a couple years of Shakti. So we knew he was coming back sort of with a vengeance, and he came back in a way that now he had more fully integrated the Indian stuff into his electric playing. So I was listening to recently, their bootlegs flying everywhere now. So there's a Park West Chicago One Truth Band show that just went up on YouTube, if you look for it, from 78. And John is shredding. And it's that hollow body, just really loud at that time. What guitar was that, Alex?
Which year was this? This
like
is
78,
late 70s.
like a Gibson hollow body. I think Andre
was it like a
345?
345? Yeah,
probably, yeah.
In the 335 family. I remember. Yeah.
And he found a way to really turn it up without having it,
feedback.
Yeah. That's a great memory. I want to say hi to the people in our chat too. I'm not forgetting you. We're going to see if you got any questions, put them in there. A lot of people just saying hi and happy birthday, and very excited to see all of you here. But a lot of love for Chester, because a lot of people were asking, what's Chester doing? Chester, a question for you, because again, you mentioned beautifully before the connection with Brazilian percussion, world percussion, really all kinds of amazing flavors came to us through Weather Report. And I remember being 15 and my dad had a Weather Report cassette, and that's where I heard some of these sounds. Talk to us a little bit again about, we just mentioned Shakti. I don't know if you got to see Shakti, but tell us a little bit of what that was like, hearing this new sound of Indian music and tabla and Zakir Hussain. Can you reflect on that a little bit, how that affected things?
Well, yeah, again, it was it just kind of opened up things in a you know, it's like, okay, so I came up first drum set lessons were all straight ahead jazz. I mean, but at the same time, when I came up, it was all the cover gigs was back in the soul music days. This was, I think it was 62 when I first started playing, like, every weekend in clubs and stuff. I was 13 at the time. And so coming out of that, I think I probably had heard more than the typical teenager. But then again, it's like, for me, it's always exciting to hear something new that just stops you in your tracks. And that's what that was. I mean, so like I say, the whole world music thing, and so that I think a reasonable continuation of that is when you heard some of Zavano's Syndicate stuff,
Mm, yeah.
because didn't focus as much on the Indian. He brought in a lot of African elements,
African,
and
Caribbean. Yeah.
right, he tended to mix all that stuff, and it's so weird, right? So not as a direct offshoot, but my wife and I were laughing. Every now and then we like to go on Sirius XM and pull up like the old R&B station, the one that plays the older stuff. And there was this period in the '70s where suddenly every R&B record had sitar on it, which is like,
Hmm.
really. But without really giving a nod to where it came from. It was just this sound that seemed to work with those records. But like I say again, I mean, I listened to all of that stuff in those days, and that was my first introduction, really, to hearing some of the Indian rhythms.
Right, right.
And so that again, that just opened up a whole new world. I don't know that I quite knew what to make of it, but it just for me, it just created this hunger. It's like, okay, I got to hear more of this stuff. I need to know what they're doing.
Wow.
And funny enough, I've never really studied the whole Indian system. I know a lot of drummers in recent years have really dove way into that. And I mean, I don't have a reason that I didn't. It just, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how to play our stuff.
That's
So,
right.
you know,
I hear you. Yeah.
and but yeah, it was again just part of that whole freshness of that era.
Right,
Um,
right.
yeah, I mean, man, it's like, I don't know how it is, but when I wasn't on tour, man, I had my place. I lived in LA. I just had records all over the place. I was just listening all the time. And then cause I found when I'm on tour, I don't tend to listen as much,
Right.
especially doing one nighters. You just don't have a whole lot of time to yourself.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, it's like, man, it's funny talking about this because I haven't really I can't say I've thought about it a lot over the years, all the stuff I heard during that period. But man, I was like a sponge trying to absorb everything I could. I need to
That,
get back to that actually.
that's great, man. Well, yeah, Shakti, as we've talked about, is so special because at that time, people, Ravi Shankar had
Hmm.
blown things up.
Right,
Woodstock, people were
Yeah.
checking out Indian music. They absolutely were. And this was different though. This was a hybrid. This was this
right.
scalloped, strange steel string guitar approach, strange with quotes around it, just because it hadn't been done. But it turned people on to Zakir, who is just
Hmm.
one of our. But yeah, Shakti was a just. I want to jump over to Alex and get some thoughts from Alex on.
Yeah. Perfect timing because
Oh, there you go.
Ah,
Natural
great.
elements.
I just took this out. Yeah, I'm
So
gonna do some listening tonight.
awesome.
But yeah, this is interesting too. Do you remember this?
Oh
Oh,
yeah, and with Carlos, yeah.
And then the guru on the back, right?
Three
His name
Chin
is
Boy.
Sri Chinmoy,
Yeah.
who named Mahavishnu. Right,
Yeah.
he gave him that name, and Narda, Michael Walden, and
Hmm.
I think
Devadip.
Santana was Devadip.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
One of
sorry
the
to interrupt.
No, it's good. The question for you as a
Ah,
guitarist.
there you go.
There you go. Because one of the things that I grew up hearing you playing heavy metal. Oh, there you go. I grew up hearing you play heavy metal, and then later on, you branched into jazz. The Alex Skolnick trio, Pack now is very influenced, actually, by this whole thing.
Completely. Yeah.
So talk to us about how John sits with Mahavishnu Orchestra, especially sits at that corner of a dirty, distorted Les Paul through a Marshall, which just attracts us all, and also your jazz side. I mean, talk to me a little bit about how that borderline, because you live at that borderline. So tell us your first time hearing that, maybe.
Yeah, well, I discovered John through his guitar work, his guitar acoustic period. In the 80s, he did the series of recordings, most famously with Al Di Meola and Paco de Lucia, the guitar trio. So that was sort of my gateway to John McLaughlin. The first sort of jazz rock adjacent player I was into was Al Di Meola, and for a while he was the only one I knew about. And then when that trio came out, okay, who are these other guys? And then I found out about the other John McLaughlin's previous work, and it was almost overwhelming because he's got so many sides. Even at that period, this is, I guess, the early 1980s, right? He had already done the stuff with Tony Williams. There was the Bitches Brew John McLaughlin. There was the Shakti John McLaughlin. There was the Mahavishnu John McLaughlin. There was already like a lifetime of work. It's just so prolific.
And lifetime.
Yes, and lifetime, exactly. So, and it was so advanced too. I mean, it took a long time before he was always like, to quote one of his titles, "My goals beyond." Right? It was like I would listen, but it was stuff I knew I would grasp way in the future. But it was also, like you said, it had melody. I don't think he gets enough credit for that, because he's got these great melodies. Da, 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 right?
Amazing.
In addition to the blazing guitar stuff and the cross-cultural thing that he did, and just so yeah, it really started with that acoustic music with Di Meola and De Lucia, but then I went backwards and then followed him ever since. And I saw him a number of times in different projects. And I guess I was kind of lucky because by that time, he wasn't like an arena rock act anymore. It wasn't Mahavishnu, playing the Fillmore and on bills with the Who. It was he's coming through. He's playing Yoshi's on the West Coast. Yeah, I was on the West Coast at that time, and the first time I saw him was in it was an intimate show. It was the old Yoshi's. It's not that big, smaller than it is now, and he had Trilot Gertu and Kai Eckhart, and it was just this perfect blend of the South Asian side with Trilot Gertu and the electric side with Kai Eckhart. And then the next time I saw him was with Joey DeFrancesco, Matt Garrison, who's become a friend, local promoter, great bass player in Brooklyn. Shapeshifter Lab. And Dennis Chambers, who I've also gotten to know. But that show I'll never forget. I mean, the folks every time was amazing, but the folks I know who were at that show, we're still talking about it.
Well, Dennis,
this was back in the 90s, and we're
absolutely the Dennis. Well, that's the thing. The list you're touching base on another wonderful thing about John, and all jazz musicians play with all kinds of people. But John has a particular through line where he pulls people from all these different genres. Chester, how's your time? I know Chester had something else on his calendar.
Yeah, I've got a few more minutes.
Few minutes. Okay, so we'll make sure we keep that in mind. Thank you so much for your time too, because I know Chester is super busy right now. I want to say we're gonna bring in another surprise guest in just a minute here, but one of the things I want to say with Alex too, that's great that I follow Alex's social medias and things. One great thing is, Alex, you're bringing some of these metalhead kids, some of these metalhead guitarists into jazz, into world music, so we appreciate that. And again,
Yeah.
this, I think, is one of John's messages. That's what message I got. He's always trying to expand.
And refuses to be categorized. Yeah.
No category.
There's a great interview I have with him somewhere, but before we sign off, I'll try to find it. But where he talks about that, and he said, people who try to categorize him, why aren't you doing this anymore? It's their problem. It's not his problem. He does what he wants to do, and back before I was doing as much instrumental music, when I was more exclusively heavy metal back in the late 80s, early 90s, I was listening to him. He was a big inspiration. He got me to, sort of help find myself and the, not be afraid to explore new territory.
Yeah, and he's quote unquote one of the first shredders, because
absolutely.
There's more that now
to it, but he really was. To this day, I can't think of anybody that comes close
and keeps it musical. Folks, Chester has got to go in a minute, I know, but I want to make sure, folks, you go to ChesterThompson.com when you get a chance. Catch up with this man, see what he's doing. He's got records out in the last couple of years. He's got a record coming out this year, Chester Thompson Trio, and there's a bunch of recent music. So, again, we don't like to just live in the history here, folks. We got a lot of stuff that these folks are doing right now. Chester,
Alfonso.
Alfonso is on his recent band. Chester, you're wrapping up an album in the next couple months, right?
Well, yeah, the tracks are done. It's mixed. I just got to do it mastered. I'm looking at a couple of different ways to put it out. I'm doing the independent thing. There is a label that's supposed to be interested, but they're really dragging their feet. Which is, I know that's what they do, but at the same time, I'm seriously thinking I'm going to bypass that and just do what I've been doing,
put it out
myself.
Hey, man.
And not have to answer to whatever their opinion. Well, I'm not claiming it's perfect, but at the same time, I don't really want to, sort of end up compromising on stuff I'd rather not compromise on. It's like I'm not expecting, like you said, it's not going to be an arena act, I don't think, unless some really weird twist of fate happens. But,
sure.
These days, who knows? It's the craziest thing I've ever been involved in. Well, it is. At the start of COVID, I had my first band that I ever had in L.A. It was a couple, a guy named Pee Wee Hill plays bass, his wife Michiko plays keyboards. And we had a couple of different guitar players. Caleb Quay was one, and a guy named Ronnie Van that used to do a lot of Motown stuff. Caleb was one of the first guys with Elton, actually. In fact, he was with he was with the company that got Elton his first publishing deal. So wow. It's Caleb's wonderful, crazy Englishman, pretty American these days. But so anyway, with the core rhythm section at the start of COVID, it was like we're all, I won't say crying the blues, but we're just all amazed because everything shut down. They got a great studio out of their home that they run, and suddenly there are no clients, there are no gigs. Their daughter is this amazing singer who's kind of becoming a really rising star named Judith Hill. She had been in Michael Jackson's band when he passed, and Prince had just produced an album for her, and she was opening for him when he passed. Well, the stuff she's done on her own since is like, I have to say, it's really impressive. She actually did a whole one of Spike Lee's films. She did all the music for. She's young. She's like maybe late 30s. Monster musician and singer. And so anyway, all of that shut down.
Sure.
And so it kind of got left with, well, if you guys are, they're just sitting running the drum machine and doing stuff. So why don't I send you some live drum stuff and you can play with it? And I did that, and they put some stuff to it and sent it back. And my eyes bugged open when I heard what they did, because I just played free. It was no plan. This goes here, none of that. But everything I played, well, I always hear melodies when I'm playing by myself. I don't think drums. I think melodies more than I do drums.
Sure.
And they sent me something back that just blew me away. So I sent them another drum track, you know. So we did that 9 more times, and it's real fresh in that it doesn't meet any of none of us played our licks. We didn't play our habits, you know.
That's great,
So
man. That
that's what the new thing's gonna be. I mean, and
okay.
it's not out there in the sense of, you know, I don't think anybody's gonna have to, you know, study theory to enjoy it or anything like that. Uh, but so what's going to be coming out. It's like I say, real different than the stuff I've done in the past.
Okay.
But so this whole COVID thing, it's like, and I know of a few other projects where it seems to draw stuff out of you that you wouldn't have done because business as usual just didn't work, you know. So I think
Yeah.
we probably, besides the part of it that's a real drag and the threat to health and all of that, I think, you know, I think a lot of us have had a chance to possibly start over to an extent, to a point,
Right.
you know.
Well,
And so,
we'll promote that, man. I mean, definitely, you know, let us know when that's
mhm.
out, and y'all go to chesterthompson.com and really follow what's happening, because he's got recent records and this one that he's working on, which it sounds like you should release it on your own. So
But it's
that's
interesting
cool.
something Alex was saying and what you were asking Alex, and I mean, and Greg and I have been communicating for a while, man. He's
Sure.
been supplying me with. You know, can I talk about the you know the stuff from New York you've been sending out, Greg? So
Okay.
so the bottom line, right? He reached out to me, and turns out we met briefly. We had met briefly, and it turned out he actually had a copy of that gig where I was telling him where I met Miles with Weather Report, and from the bottom line and stuff. And so he's been turning them on. I guess there's a project going there where they're, you know, resurrecting some of that stuff, some of those concerts. And oh my goodness, what a wealth of music, man.
We've
And
just been
so,
dealing with it lately, Chester. Actually, we signed with a new label, Omnivore Recordings, which is
ah,
going to have better distribution, and they want a lot of jazz.
okay,
So
nice.
we've got Cobham Duke on the horizon, I think.
Oh, nice, nice. Speaking of Carbon Duke, Alfonso and I just, you know, we still do a lot of stuff together, actually.
That's Sons of Miles, all of it.
Oh, cool.
I'm gonna bring in another Miles connection right now. We're gonna bring in another guest, and of course, Chester, you've played with Wayne, who was on
Yeah,
Bitches Brew, and other Miles Davis.
right.
We're gonna bring in someone here who has also played with Wayne, and who has played prog music across the map. He's currently in the Steven Wilson Band. People know him from many of his own records, Adam Holtzman Trio, Adam Holtzman Group, and under his own name.
Who's Bendian?
And
And
also, yeah, and he,
Hey, everybody.
Miles Davis is for sure.
Hey.
Hey,
Hey.
Jane Geddes here.
hey,
All right.
Hey,
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year.
Hey,
But one
Greg,
of the
what's up, man?
other connections, of course, is Adam played with Miles Davis. Adam, do you know Chester? And then you know the other guys. You know
No, I've
Chester
never
Thompson?
had the pleasure. It's a
No, we
pleasure.
never met.
Adam
Good to,
Holtzman,
good to
Jane
meet
Geddes,
you, man.
Adam and Shane. By the way, congratulations to Adam and to Jane, who just both came in, actually coincidentally, number 8 on keyboards, number 8 on guitar in the Prague magazine polls
Yeah,
that just
that
came
was
out.
Nice.
so cool.
That's really cool.
Great.
Number 8's our lucky number now, I think.
That's right.
You're gonna have to get an
Nice.
8 tattoo.
But
Great idea, Alex. Thank you. As soon as
Wow.
Omnicron is over, I'll go.
Wow.
I'm still
So-
not a tattoo guy, but okay.
Yeah. And we play together as well. We should
that's right. You
mention
guys
that.
play together.
Yeah.
Alex Skolnick's in their band, and so all the connections here. Here, I want to go right to Adam's thoughts on hearing Mahavishnu early on, because Adam, people, I always bring this up for those who don't know. Adam's music history is closer than almost any of us, because his dad is the wonderful Jack Holtzman, who founded None Such Records and Elektra Records. So Adam got to grow up around all this music, and I want to ask you, Adam, give us an impression of McLaughlin when you first heard him, because I know you love all of his music, but I know you love In a Silent Way. You love it so much. one of your great albums is called In a Loud Way. So give us a snapshot of hearing John McLaughlin on the Miles material and then Mahavishnu. Talk to us about that, because you were a little kid.
Well, I guess I was in my 14, 15. I was completely. The first thing I heard was Birds of Fire, and as a matter of fact, my father had a cassette and he threw it on in the car, and it was a complete mind blow. And I was basically enormous fan of that, and nothing has ever really quite. It's almost in some ways like the first Alien movie. Nothing really quite hits you like that again afterwards,
That's a good. That's I always get a great quote from you, Adam. That's fucking great. Birds of Fire is like the first Alien movie. Nothing gets
Great quote. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't say that, okay, but don't give me too much credit.
All right.
Thanks.
But okay, so you heard that, and then you heard In a Silent Way after that, then, huh?
I came to Miles, especially Miles's 70s period later on. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Interesting.
so I pieced that together. In a Silent Way, I'm a big fan of, but also that whole period. I mean, I think that a case can be made, and McLaughlin would have a key component in this, is that people talked about jazz rock and talk about Preludes to Kilimanjaro and Bitches Brew and these projects, but it wasn't until Jack Johnson that Miles really went jazz rock, and I think that was because of McLaughlin. I mean, obviously, it was obviously because of McLaughlin, but I think that's where it becomes a whole kind of another thing. Of course, there are rock and contemporary music elements in Bitches Brew and things like that starting to be introduced, but it was Jack Johnson where he went kind of all the way.
Of course. That's great, man. Now you, one of the things too, another through line connection to this is you played in the Mahavishnu Project, so you learned all this stuff. And
Hey, Greg,
yeah, tell me something a little bit about John's composition style, his writing style, from a keyboard point of view, because you've been a fan straight through to today. Like, tell me.
That's such a broad question.
I know,
Andre. I don't know what to say. I mean, I will say that I completely loved psyching out Jan Hammer's parts, and that's what it was all about. He's really also my hero. So that was a bit, and also I must hats off to Greg, who did a fantastic job arranging all that music, sorting through it. Making it so we were all, kind of on point with that stuff. It was a great kind of process to go through all that. And we played everything. We played everything from the first album through Visions of the Emerald Beyond. We didn't play Apocalypse. We played everything else. Pretty much everything else, and even bonus tracks on later CDs and stuff. I mean. Wow. And it was great going that deep into one of the strangest and coolest bands of all time.
Well, that was the big point of the Mahavishnu Project, was that we could cover the range of John's interests. So you had acoustic pieces like Thousand Island Park, and then you had blowout pieces like One Word. And then we could rearrange things if we wanted to and have tunes that we could add solos to where there weren't solos. We could add keyboard solos where there hadn't previously been keyboard solos.
I enjoyed that part of it, yes.
So you got to get everybody involved, whereas, around Emerald Beyond and Apocalypse, keyboards take a back seat. But, the whole book has such a range of challenges. So you're going to go through everything from 4, 3, 7, 9, 11, 19, 16. You're going to be dealing with
all the time signatures. Okay,
all those time signatures, and you have to be able to flow in them.
Well, you took it all the way. We had a string quartet playing with us, doing the Visions of the Emerald Beyond. So we really duplicated the whole thing. And these guys were really good too.
Yeah. And
that was heavy duty.
We went a little overboard, and, but one of the nice things about the string quartet is that we could do Smile the Beyond from Apocalypse. So we did do one
Oh,
song.
I forgot about that. Right.
And I arranged it for string quartet. The sort of reduction from the orchestral London Symphony stuff. And the tunes hold up.
But
And-
Visions was a string quartet, so that was correct. That was not an orchestra
The
reduction.
string quartet was added to the rock band and horns.
Right.
Yeah.
George Martin.
Oh, Greg, I don't think a lot of people know this, but you guys played something called the Vishnu Fest, was it? Where you played like 5-6 nights? Talk to me about that, because I think on night number 1, you actually had like a couple of the guys from Mahavishnu in the audience.
No, night number 1, we had John McLaughlin in the audience.
Oh my God.
I've never had.
I think I blocked that.
Wow.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
I didn't remember.
No, this was the 2000,
Oh, that was before I was in the.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
before I was in the band. Yeah.
and this was like Steve Hunt and Rob Thomas. Trying to think who else was on that. And John showed up on invitation, and it was my birthday. And he came on stage, talked to the audience, and he sang "Happy Birthday" to me.
Oh my God.
And so that's one of the great moments.
Wow. Totally.
Oh.
But playing that stuff in front of him was a challenge. But the good news is, by day 3, when Jan and Rick Laird came up, rest in peace, we were warmed up and we played the entire Intermounting Flame album start to finish, and we're very comfortable by that point. And so the idea was, like, we would do one best of night, we would do something out of the box. Like one night we did music of Jan Hammer. One night we did music of Jeff Beck. And then we'd always close the night with an album, a full album. So we did full Emerald Beyond, we did full Birds of Fire, we did full Intermounting Flame. And when they're all played together as a suite, you really get a pick, because I don't know how many people sit down and listen to full albums anymore. So this is kind of like,
We do.
yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
So this is sort of a hostage
Right.
situation where you had to listen to the album all the way through.
Right.
And it really pointed out how strong the writing was and how amazing a platform it is for creativity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room for you to interpret, and a lot of room, we weren't looking to recreate pieces, really.
At the same time, I found that the soloing voice had to be within a narrow range. Only certain things really worked with the stuff, and it was basically along the lines of what those guys played, those kind of patterns and approaches, and the way they outlined the chords and things like that. Anyway,
And
For
he
good.
had, I
That
know
would make
John had
sense.
a whole thing matching up the modes with everyone's astrological sign, right?
We did that on Awakening, yeah.
Yeah.
I
so-
forgot about that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
It
That's
gets really heavy.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I said we
I
went a
never
little bit too far.
Yeah. But
No,
Jan came back though, and he came back to the tribute we did for him. That was when I was in the band a year or so later. So
Yep.
he was there. He was there
Yeah.
more. Well, he came back. He came back for more. Anyway.
I want to remind people too that, again, there's a new record. We're talking about this man. We're talking about his influence on all of us. There's this new record, and let's hear just a little snippet again, because what's cool about this, the last track. First thing I'll say, and Adam, I love what you just said. I think Adam said, maybe Greg said it about listening to albums still. Greg said, and yes, I know you're being facetious. We all do, or many of us. But this record is cool because it's not even 40 minutes long, and it really reminds you that there were some amazing records back in our day that sometimes it's all you need. So the other thing that's cool on this new record, Liberation Time, again, you can get it at Bandcamp, Abstract Logix. The closing tune touches base on something that John has done through the 50 years of, the main 50 years, which is, I'm going to come back and ask our drummers about this. He always seemed to write with the drummer. I mean, you have these rehearsals where it's just John and Billy Cobham, and you can really hear that the rhythmic, ESP on some of the.
You can tell
Mahavishnu
that's
stuff.
what was going on with Tony Williams' Lifetime also.
I was
Right,
about to say
exactly.
that. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
then
That's where that started.
Shakti is chock full of lines where he is playing with Zakir. So what I think is beautiful on the new record, Liberation Time, we'll hear it right now, is on the closing track. He goes into a ridiculous blowing section with the great Gary Husband. Let's just hear just a tiny bit of that. Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah.
Wow. Woo.
Go! Oh man. I mean, again, the copyright police say that we can only do so much. Wow.
Killer. Alex, some stuff to transcribe in
I
there.
was gonna tell you the same thing.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Jane, you probably noticed the same thing I did. His patterns are not like anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
Like almost all of us, we all have patterns that are sort of we borrow from others that get passed along. None of his stuff sounds like anybody else. I can't think.
I know. I mean, it's like it's him like straight away.
Yeah.
He's got his own sound, but he was playing some other shit in there that I hadn't heard him play before. So there's something to look forward to when you're 80. Hopefully, to keep keep growing and developing.
Exactly. That's it.
Not everybody's like
No.
Well, that's it right there, folks. That a great guitarist like Jane Gedder, a great guitarist like Alex Skolnick is saying, what's this guy doing? And he's 78, 79 recording this stuff. I think that's what's so inspiring to all of us is that you do it. You get in the tank and you do it. And John has always expressed that. He's so beautiful in interviews because he's always so humble. He's always just talking about that he's learning, right? That he always has that vibe of like, hey, I'm trying to get to this next thing. I'm trying to.
Well, John, I luckily have had some quality time with John over the years. And one funny thing he said to me, which I just think is hilarious, is he's a big Holdsworth fan. And he said to Alan, if I could figure out what you were doing, I would steal it.
Chad Wackerman used to say that the only person Zappa listened to while they were sitting around in the airports with their Walkman and stuff was Holdsworth.
Oh wow!
So these guys, so these other guys that are vibrating on another frequency, they're all checking out Holdsworth.
And Holdsworth is another one where it just doesn't sound like anybody else. Like that pattern, we cannot detect where that came from.
These guys are like the planets that are moving around, and they've all done some. Chester,
I love Alan, but what I love about John is his fiery, right on the beat, 16th note, kind of two guns slinging thing. It's not just it doesn't float over the groove. It's right exactly part of the grid,
Well, I was going to say too that John, it goes back to, in an interesting way, to the relationship between Ala Raka and Ravi Shankar and John Coltrane and Elvin Jones. Those are the two areas I think that really impacted John in terms of the relationship with drummers.
Right.
Because John, another funny story is one of the techs from Mahavishnu Orchestra would come to our shows. And he said that one time they were driving in a car to go to dinner, and he put on a Love Supreme on the cassette player. And these guys had never heard of Love Supreme, the road crew. And John said, "What do you guys think of this?" And they go, I don't know, John, this is pretty wild. And he goes, "This is what I'm trying to accomplish."
Wow.
That makes
that's heavy.
It surprised me though.
But going back to still learning and growing and evolving in your 80s, Pablo Casals was asked, "Why do you still practice when you're in your 80s?" He says, "Well, I think it's working. I think I'm getting better."
That's what while it's still fresh in his ears, and again, I played that track because, and we're talking about it, just this central idea of rhythm, this advanced rhythmic concept that John had, and studying Indian rhythms, studying world rhythms. But as Greg has pointed out a lot, I want to get the reactions from our other drummer, Chester. Had you heard that track that we just played, Chester?
No, I had not heard that.
Give us a gut reaction to that.
Oh,
Gary Husband. Yeah.
Oh, well, first of all, it was fun. that's the first reaction. There's a chemistry, there's a thing there. Somebody could try to transcribe it and make themselves crazy because they still wouldn't know the why. They might could come up with the notes. Oh, they did this, they did that. But that stuff is so immediate. It's a conversation, and it's kind of like, I've not done that with a lot of guitar. There's a few wonderful saxophone players that I've played with, and at some point, if it's alive, at some point in the night, very often they'll just want to do something with just the drums. And so when that happens, I try to make sure I get rid of any and all thoughts or expectations and just try to zero in on what's going on and just have this conversation with them. Not to step on what they're saying, not to repeat what they're saying, but just to try to have a conversation, And that was like a really great example of that, listening to that just now. They were like in each other's head, nothing got stepped on. It wasn't, none of it felt like see me. No, it was none of that.
At all. Yeah.
No, you just felt this wonderful communication that they were having, I had not heard it before, but I'm glad I did.
That's great. No, I love the communication. What a great, it really sounded like that. And again, there's a through line for 50 years of John always zoning in on the drummer or the tabla player. And let me just make sure I'm not missing any questions in YouTube world. Folks, you've been so great. I want to tell you all that a lot of love in the YouTube, just people so excited to see all your faces. A shout out to Fire Merchants from Jody McAllister, my dear pal, Jody. And Shovik is here. Oh, what an honor. Shovik is here from Abstract. Awesome. Yes, indeed. So their website's there. Again, check that out. I wanted to we talked about shredding a minute ago, right? And I just want to play a little clip of another track here. We're going to jump to, I think it's the late 70s, early 80s, this record. I'm just going to play it, and we'll talk about it later. But listen to John in the first few seconds of this song, the first minute.
Balen.
Here we go. So I just wanted to get to that because the thing I wanted to point out too is it's quote unquote shredding. I mean, that is ridiculous, but it's so musical. It's singable melodies still. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things very few people could pull that off. You know, this, you know, and jumping to the guitarist for a minute, Alex, talk about that for a minute because what?
Well, it's so relaxed. You know, it doesn't sound hyped up or stressed at all. I mean, it's got the same sense of control as if somebody's playing a ballad, except he's playing a lot of notes, but he's making it work because, you know, his time and his feel are so good. That's one of my favorite sounds of his. As great as he is with the more electric stuff, the stuff we were just listening to, I love it when he plays that type of international acoustic sound. And also his style, he makes it work in all these different situations. The most recent time I saw him was with Chick Corea, may he rest in peace, at the Blue Note.
5-piece.
And but at the last time they did was all blues. And all blues isn't a song you think of, you know, John McLaughlin. Maybe he's not the first person that comes to mind, but he and Chick did that as a tribute to Miles. And it was stellar. I mean, it just tore the house down, and it worked so well over all blues. Obviously, he's going to play all blues much different than somebody like Jim Hall, for example, but it was beautiful. And there was a connection to the type of stuff he played, but whatever situation he's in, it makes it work.
That's another great takeaway quote. Whatever situation he makes it work. You know, yeah, folks, it's impossible, and we're not here to do a kind of a blow by blow. Wait, that's Jeff Beck. We're not here to do a blow by blow on every record this man has done. More just kind of a snapshot, just kind of express our love, hit some areas. That's, by the way, from a record called Music Spoken Here, 1982. If you don't know that record, that a lot of people I find hadn't heard that one. That's a great record. But
can I just introduce?
Yeah, let's give the guitar's thought.
It's in the pocket. It's in the pocket. That's to me. That's like when people shred and they're in the pocket. I think that is when
no
it's
choices too, melodic.
No choices, but I'm just talking about rhythmically.
Yeah,
you know, it's just you're like it's like something totally different than when you're just playing a bunch of notes and it's sort of, you know, the band is here and it's sort of like somewhere up there. You know, but when you're quote shred and you're like right in it, it's much more.
Sure.
Well, he's not forced when he does it, and I think most people, if they try to play like that, it's going to sound very forced. Mm-hmm. And with him, it's just like natural. That's what he naturally feels.
Natural is the thing. Natural is the thing. Yeah. Five. I'm glad you brought up. Say again, Greg. Sorry.
And he's picking every note.
Wow.
Right.
You know?
Which is just
no legato happening there.
It's unbelievable.
No legato. Right,
there we go. That's right.
The whole work does legato in time and in the pocket.
Steve Moore's philosophy.
Nothing to take away from Alan's left hand, but I mean, guys like Steve Morse and John McLaughlin pick every note.
Pick every note. No, it's true. And shout out to the 5-piece band. And thank you for reminding me of 5-piece band, Alex, because incredible band. Those of you who haven't heard that, that's relatively recent, about a decade ago, I think it was. And wow, Chick Corea.
Well, actually, when I saw him, it was Chick Corea's residency, and I think it was Chick Corea's birthday too. Yeah, he would do these birthdays where he would take over the Blue Note.
Sure.
Kenny Garrett. No, on sax?
Not the night. Every night it was somebody different.
Oh, it's a different project. Okay, you're right.
Yeah, so he had Bela Fleck one night. He had the night I saw him. It was Lenny White and Victor Wooten, and McLaughlin. Yeah, it was just like okay.
As you do. No, that's a great record. If any of you have missed that, I want to go to a quick video clip here, and we usually get away with a little YouTube. There's so many McLaughlin clips. You know, that's what's beautiful for those of you who are not as familiar with some of the stranger corners of the catalog. But this is always one of my favorite. I just want to play this just because he is so relaxed. Again, we keep coming up with that word, but so relaxed on this. Let's just go right to it, and I'll let the person introduce.
Oh, wow. Johnny.
Can't hear it.
Is there a sound button?
Wait, do we have audio?
We don't have audio.
Live production here. Let's see. Sorry about that, folks. We got so many things happening here. Okay, there we go. We got audio now. Sorry about that. Let's try again. And so it's Johnny, of course, introducing
Johnny.
John.
Yeah.
Johnny and Johnny. Yeah. That's as cool as it gets.
Here's Johnny.
All right. Let's try that again, folks. And again, I want you to note just how chilled. Just, we could curse on this, but he's a badass motherfucker, John.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He just walks out and watch what happens. Here we go. Let's try that again.
And November 27th and 29th, he'll be performing his original composition, Concerto for Guitar and Orchestra at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. Would you welcome, please, John McLaughlin.
Wow.
Video free.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah.
I'm McLaughlin. And we'll be back.
Wow.
Thanks for sharing that.
Really?
Man,
Wow. Mind
that was
blowing.
incredible.
I can't believe that was on American TV. That just wouldn't happen now on
I know,
the late
right?
night shows. Yeah.
The Dregs were on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Dregs were?
Jay Leno, yeah.
They were, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. You know, well, let's reflect on that for a minute, because a couple things, right? You know, wouldn't be on TV. Yeah, maybe not in the U.S. some odd
Europe
station,
could have it. Yeah.
some college station or something. But how about how relaxed he was? He just comes out. Of course, he's played that song a million times, but I just love the vibe that he just. And again, though, to what we were saying before we came on to that video, the dexterity, but keeping it musical. Again, this is something throughout the history. Yeah.
He makes it work any situation. I mean, that sounded great with that band. That band was on fire. Oh my God.
Yeah, did you hear the piano player behind throwing
Oh
a few
yeah.
hits? Whoa.
They were burning. Great arrangement.
It's funny, you guys have been touching on the relaxed thing about John, and it's so interesting because as we look at all these great players that we admire, I remember talking to Vinnie Colaiuta about how he's able to do all the stuff that he does and look very relaxed. And he said that he studied Bruce Lee and Bruce Lee's writings. And Bruce Lee talked about, if I wasn't relaxed, I wouldn't be able to move that fast. If I wasn't relaxed, I couldn't really do that. And there's a lot to be learned from that, you know? So you obviously are going to push to the point where it hurts. And then maybe the next day you can push a little bit further, and maybe the next day after that. And I'll add one other little thing I witnessed. When I first met John, it was at Town Hall for a Remember Shakti concert. And I was very fortunate because I could bring my dad and he got to meet him. And he was really nice to my dad. And then he introduced me to Selva Ganesh, Zakir, and Srinivas. So I got to meet Srinivas. And I got to see John start his warm-up. And it was literally major scales like this slow. Boom, dun, 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 right? So I go out to dinner and I come back an hour later and he's doing the same thing, except it's so he actually does that thing that we're all supposed to do, which is play it slow before you play it fast. And so there's a lot of, I think, articulation and control that comes from that kind of discipline that we can take away from John, you know?
Right.
No, that's a great point. And he's playing still at the top of his game. I mean, we've heard a few things now that are brand new, folks. That record is, I think it's August it dropped, August or July, something like that. Liberation Time, that we keep coming back to. And again, we gave you the label, Abstract Logix, but do know that there's a bunch of great records that have come out on that label. And again, we live in the modern time when, unless you are on the email list, unless you are, checking out Jazz Times, or unless you're really following it, these records come out and we tend to maybe miss them. So if you didn't know this, and I meet people all the time. I mean,
Industrial Zen's another good one too from the last 10 years.
Absolutely. Just going to say that. Now hear this, To the One, Blacklight, Industrial Zen. These are all pretty recent records that have shown that the guy is not only still pushing the compositional envelope, but his playing is fantastic. His playing is still on the one. Do check out johnmclaughlin.com because he's got it all there. Stuff about his equipment, what he's doing. A lot of his thoughts are on there. But for you gearheads, he's got a really cool. I love that too, cool. That he's still excited about gear. When you look at recent interviews, he's always changing things up. He's always experimenting. We love the tone on this new record. I mean, it really
A really nice tone.
just and so
It used to be extra expressive too.
Yes,
with the single notes on this one. I mean, yeah,
absolutely.
he's got the chop still, but
During the,
I noticed that he's got some more bends. He's got some new vibrato he's worked in there. Really nice.
Those of you, again, we love make weird music. One of the things we are is about the pedagogy of it. It's about the musicology of it. And if you're studying John McLaughlin, if you're here and you haven't seen his site, he's done a beautiful bunch of work right here. I love this page because it's him talking about the various eras. So if there's an area that you didn't really know about, like say you didn't hear the Heart of Things band in '97 with Gary Thomas, Dennis Chambers, again the great Matt Garrison, Jim Beard, Admaro, Ruiz. We were just talking about some of these cats.
That was the show I saw.
Yeah, John has a quick bit of notes about that. If you weren't around for when he brought back Shakti, his 70th birthday, he gets into that. There's some beautiful pictures. A lot of this stuff, folks, are personal collection pictures, stuff you don't see elsewhere. So it's really cool. I've spent a lot of time on this page because he really drills down year by year. This is exquisite stuff, and it's right at the source. This is the man himself kind of just saying, here's my little diary of, some of the stuff that happened. He tells stories, and he also puts in context. I'm sure he's got some help from programmers and things, but he puts into context what album was out at the time, and that picture isn't there, but the rest of them are all there, and we are. Let me just come back out of that. Okay, and so there we go. So I just wanted to make sure we touch base on that, and Coco is here on the live stream. So I just wanted to also give we have Vernon Reid, of course, that we announced is going to be here. Vernon's got some commutation. He's commuting in New York right now, and he got held up. So we're hoping he jumps on by the end of the show. But we apologize. Vernon sends his love, and of course, big McLaughlin, big Mahavishnu fan, and one of the things, I'll just say, he's not here right now, but one of the things that we can talk about, even in his absence, is that he is part of this thread because he plays not only we know his wonderful music from Living Color and your Himby Brothers and Mask, but Vernon was in Jack Bruce's last band, and that's one of the things, and we can just talk about it, but one of the beautiful things of Jack Bruce's last band, as it relates to John McLaughlin, is that the incredible Emergency record, right, featured John, featured Jack Bruce. Sorry, John's on both of those early Lifetime, but not only was Vernon in Jack's last band, and they did a bunch of that material, right, but there is an occasion where John sat in with the band. So people should look for that. There is a clip with Cindy Blackman, John Medeski, Jack Bruce, Vernon, and John sits in. So there's a nice full circle thing there. But hopefully if Vernon gets to a computer during this, we'll see him. But if not, he sends his best.
Another YouTube gem that I would recommend is if you can find the original Dance of Maya was a Lifetime's song. And the violin melody is sung by Jack Bruce.
Right.
So
yeah, Adam, you told us that when we jammed on
it. Yeah. Folks, I want to say a proper thank you and goodbye right now because he's got to go to this next thing. Chester Thompson, who's been here with us for quite some time. Chester, thanks so much for stopping in.
Oh man, it's been a pleasure. This is like a real education because a lot of this stuff, I'm hearing some stuff I didn't know about him, and other than the stuff I've heard that he played, hearing this other side is pretty wonderful, man. This is some awesome stuff. As the possible elder statesman here, let me point out something real quick.
Sure, yeah.
And it's something I learned from observing my mom, right? So as she was getting older, and moving differently and all that. You know, 'cause I no longer lived in the same city. When I'd come back and hang out with her, you know, because I hadn't seen her, I was like that much more aware of the changes. But then we'd hang out and talk, and I realized it's her. Same sense of humor, same outlooks, uh, and I've never forgot that. And now that I'm possibly older than she was. I'm not sure actually, but I have to ask my sister. But the thing I want to pass on real quick is that you're still you. We're still us, okay? And we see somebody like him, and hopefully you take care of yourself and you're able to continue on. You know, your body doesn't betray you, and you can keep it going. But man, it's like, and we absolutely should honor and respect people in that position that have just, man, they've laid out a whole. They've laid out a path, and we can look like, I mean, my hero is Roy Haynes. You know, it's like,
Wow.
I mean,
Sure.
come on, you know. But basically, you know, hopefully if our health holds up, um, why not? I mean, we don't have to fear folding up because I'm only 73 at this point, but I tell people, and I mean it, I have more fun than I've ever had in my life playing because I realize my gig is just to get up there and listen.
Wow.
You know, I got to do my homework. You know, I got to keep my chops up. The body is not as willing as it used to be. You know, it's like I have to push myself to do things that came real easy. And en route to doing that, I discover other things, which is still fun. But man, it's like, you know, we're looking at, you know, and it's amazing because we look at the youngest generation coming up, and oh my goodness, man, it's like, oh, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, I guess like evolution. I don't believe evolution and spirituality are against one another. I think that's built into the system. It gets better. Everything keeps getting better. You know, we get more understanding. But I mean, hats off to every one of you because I know you're all awesome players, and it's like I feel pretty privileged to be a part of this. But man, let's all look forward to getting to be that age, and you know, we can get a good smile when the younger guys point and they're amazed because we can do what we do, not realizing that it's still us. We're still, you know, we're still who we are. Yeah. So thank you, Andre, for inviting me to be a part of this. Greg, like I said, you've been a real blessing to my life, man. I'm gonna dig in a lot more to Alex and Adam. You guys, I feel like I'm getting a nice education here, so I gotta dig in a little deeper. But thank you so much. Happy New Year, everyone, and God bless you.
Yeah, real honored. Thank you.
Yeah, real
Thanks,
honor.
Chester.
Chester.
Take care.
Wow.
Thanks, Chester.
We'll see you,
All
man.
right. Now I'm trying to figure out how to get out of here.
Leave. There's a.
Yeah, right.
There we go. Wow. Wow.
Oh, that was deep.
I'm
Wow.
blown away, folks. And you know, out of so many of the wonderful things Chester shared with us, for him to say, "Wow, I really learned some stuff here," like it expanded his understanding and of John McLaughlin, which is I didn't expect that at all. But it a couple things that shows how big of a world John has created for us, right? How many different corners, but really just love and gratitude to Chester for coming in. And I'm serious, you know, people know he was in Zappa with Genesis, but the fusion, the jazz rock, the world music side, the jazz side, those records he did with Weather Report and those tours, and the Fire Merchants. Don't snooze on Fire Merchants. Fire Merchants features the late John Goodsall, who I had the joy of touring with a number of times. I really miss John. But the late John Goodsall and the late, great Doug Lunn, our dear friend who's done a lot of records with Greg Bendian, with Mike Keneally, with all kinds of people, Andy Summers. But check that out, folks. And Jody was talking about the vinyl earlier, but that's a band that slipped under the cracks. But if you're here tonight, and you are, and you like music that pushes the envelope, that pushes what's possible, Fire Merchants is one of those. So check that out. That's one of Chester's more, you know, in your face kind of projects. So and it's also on the Progcast, by the way. Our dear friend Greg Bendian here, bendianmusic.com. We're going to do some links at the end too. bendianmusic.com. see what Greg's all about. He's part of the Make Weird Music family now, and he's been doing some stuff. There's a wonderful Todd Rundgren interview that we've got some previews of here. And by the way, thank you for being here. Please subscribe. Please like. Sometimes I forget this housekeeping part, but please, if you're not a subscriber, help us do these kinds of things, and we will notify you. We're all over the map. We're all over the globe on our musical tastes, the wonderful team that I'm so happy to be part of here with Cedric and Coulter and Kathy, and the madman behind it all, Anthony Garone, who founded this page, this website, this amazing venture called Make Weird Music. He inspires us. He pushes us to come up with events like this. So we need you to subscribe, tell your friends, let them know, because we're really trying to do something here that's educational, that's celebratory, and that really shows us that music's timeless, and these artists are still doing music, and then they have music that you might need to find out about. So thanks for being here. I want to go to go do a quick run through with everyone. Tell us favorite tunes. Give us like your top McLaughlin song or Mahavishnu or any of the groups. And I'll start with Greg. Give us a favorite if you have. It's impossible, possibly, but
I do have a favorite, and it's sort of a spiritual connection that I feel to this tune on Birds of Fire called Sanctuary. Because Sanctuary, has one of the great. It's funny because it doesn't have a McLaughlin solo. Really, it has a Jan solo on the record. But when we did it, we would always do a guitar solo and a sax solo and a synth solo. So it just has a vibe to it that to me is so deeply spiritual, and it's a slow 9 rhythm, which is just got a beautiful rolling texture to it. But I want to also then add maybe favorite guitar solo. I always felt like I agreed that the Birds of Fire guitar solo ended up on the Rolling Stones list of top guitar solos, because I think coming out of the box with that solo is really pretty radical. And it opens the album with that phased gong, but when John cuts loose on that solo, to me, that's John McLaughlin tearing it up.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Adam and Jane, a favorite tune?
Dance of Maya is my favorite, and we actually play that in my band in our show and the encore. We actually just play the first part. We don't go into.
It's okay. Don't tell them.
Don't give it away.
Yeah, but I just love. Aside from the really interesting way that the drums are playing against the main riff, and then the melody on top of that, I just think that the whole arpeggiated things, going through the whole song is just brilliant.
Yeah.
It's one of the heavy syncopations of all time, for sure. Yeah. And I'm going to piggyback on that with Lila's Dance from Virtuoso and Beyond. Right. Also, right. I love that one, too.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. How about Alex? What's your...
Yeah, I'm going to go with...
If you have a favorite, yeah.
I mean, it's tough because there's just so many, but I'm going to go with The Meeting of the Spirits, which opens Intermounting Flame. And it's just the intensity of it is so amazing, and it's so unpredictable, and just it's just got such an attitude. Like there's nothing subtle about it. I must have borrowed that chord so many times with the
it's a great chord. Yes,
that chord. It's just like it's and it's kind of funny with solos, like McLaughlin solo. He's the one guy. Like I don't know many people who have transcribed his stuff. You don't really learn his solos, But I like on Joy, which opens the first Shakti album.
Right.
He just plays some stuff that is just unreal.
Yeah.
And I've actually tried a couple of the licks, and I don't know if I played them right, but I think I've sort of come up with some licks that are kind of loosely based on it.
Sure.
So it's been amazing. But the whole piece of music is almost 20 minutes, which I just love. It's like, screw you, music industry. I don't care. I'm going to, and that's him coming off of Mahavishnu when it was at its peak commercially.
Sure.
And he just annoyed so many people at the record label, and just, it's just wonderful. It's just an incredible piece of music.
That's a great bunch of selections, folks. We've got another special surprise here.
Is that who I think it is?
I want to give a welcome to our brother, another rhythm master, ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Chambers. How are you, Dennis?
I'm fine. Sorry.
Hey, Dennis.
Right. Hey, Alex. How you doing, my brother?
Good to see you again, man.
Same here. It's
awesome.
good to be seen.
Yeah.
Dennis, give us, let's jump right into, just give us some thoughts on the 80th birthday of the maestro, man, because we've seen you on so many great tours with John. There's so many records. Give us just a stream of consciousness.
Well, I mean, first, you have to know John is like a brother to me. And I heard from him 2 days ago, and he was, expressing his concern of his 80th birthday. But, look, I mean, working with that guy, working with a guy who knows more time signatures than most drummers, including myself, is a pure challenge. But, I think I toured, or I worked with John for 6 years. I think it was 6 years. I know it was 3 years with Free Spirits, and I think another 3 years with
Heart of Things.
Heart of Things, yeah.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, every day we toured. It was just an absolute pleasure to go to work and not knowing what's going to happen musically. It's just. I mean, because we played, somewhat the same music, but we never played it the same every night. And he loved that. He loved the challenge of to see what's going to happen with the music every night. He was one of a few that when you play with him, I mean, he don't want the music to be typed in or cookie cutting. Meaning that he just didn't want it. He didn't want that music to be the same. And, when I first heard Mahavishnu, in fact, when I first saw the Mahavishnu I saw the original Mahavishnu twice, and I saw once with Narder. And the one with I mean, both bands were unbelievable, but with Billy and, or the original lineup, that was insane. That was really, really, really insane. And, it felt like, it felt like somebody. There's 4 lions in the cage, and they just throwing the meat. That's what it sounded like. It was so intense and so precise. But yet, it's hard to explain how you get 4 guys, especially back in them days, to play like that. Because when I first saw Billy Cobham, I saw him play with Hart Silver, and that was in the 60s. And next thing I know, I see him with the Mahavishnu, and I couldn't believe that was the same guy.
Yeah, like what happened?
Sure. Yeah.
Wow. You were clearly at shows as a child.
Yeah.
Some of these shows, you were a little child.
Yeah, they played once. I think I was 13 when they played they were played at the Morris Mechanic Theater here in Baltimore.
I love it.
My 13th birthday, May 9th.
No, I love it. And we always love when people bring their kids to shows, and this is an example of what happens because they see Mahavishnu and okay, wow.
No, that was insane. You buy the records and you think you kind of have an idea of what it is because you heard it from the records, and then you go to see them live, and it just completely took you right back to school again.
Wow.
Especially in them days, I mean, because nobody played like that,
That
and I also have I got tons of bootleg tapes on them, where every now and then I'll find something on some of these bootlegs, and I'll either call up John or I'll call up Billy, talk to them about some of this stuff. Of course, some of those guys they don't want to talk about that kind of stuff. But I can't help myself. I mean, even when I worked with John, I was asking questions, like off and on, and had a chance to play some of that music, with John.
Oh, okay. Just like sound checks and rehearsals type thing.
Sound checks, some at rehearsal, and some on gigs.
You guys did some covers. Let's Dennis, stick with us for a minute. I know Adam and Jane have something, and so they're going to split too. I love that everyone said to me, hey, you know what? I got this, I got that, but let me make some time and jump in. I really appreciate it because that also speaks to the love for what we're doing and talking about John McLaughlin. Before you go, Adam, let's remind people, Adam and Jane, again, are part of this family that all of these greats, Miles Davis, Wayne Shorter, John McLaughlin, who we're here talking about, all of these greats, Chick Corea, have left us a legacy of combining music, taking jazz as a template and going out into outer space. And I want you to know that Adam has an amazing new album out, Fragments, by the band Trifecta, which is Adam, Craig Blundell, and Nick Beggs. Nick and Adam and Greg are part of the Stephen Wilson group. And if you go into their website and read this, they were writing stuff, when they had a moment here and there. Really great record, which, again, carries on this tradition of experimentation, of reaching, of trying to find new horizons in jazz, in funk, in gospel, in rock. They pull it all together. So don't snooze and go check out Trifecta. And also check out Jane's recent album, which Jane, you surprised me, so I didn't know you were here, so I didn't have I didn't have something ready to pull up. But thanks you all for stopping in. And
thanks for having me, Dennis. Great seeing you again, man.
Yeah, I didn't see you at first. Now I see you. Yeah. Hello, man. How you doing? Happy New Year to the book.
Yeah, Happy New Year, man. All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks, y'all.
Andre, thanks so much for turning me on to all this stuff from John that I wasn't aware of. So I'm really gonna and also his
me too.
I'm definitely going to check out some of that stuff.
Y'all are going to bring me to tears because I do this because we want to inspire people. And I'm so touched that all these folks that I respect and I listen to are saying, hey, I got to check that album out. I didn't hear that. Wow, that means so much. Thank you. So go listen to some of this stuff you haven't heard. And thank you. We love you both. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having us, man. Goodbye. See you, Greg.
See you guys.
See you, Dennis.
We'll talk.
See you, Adam. See you, Jane.
Bye.
Let's jump right back to Dennis because you just got here, Dennis. Thank you again so much. So you shared with us that you saw the original Mahavishnu, which is amazing and crazy. Talk to us about this thing, and we talked about it a little bit before, how John always locks up with the drummer, whether it's Billy Cobham, you, now Gary Husband, Ranjit, whether it's Zakir Hussain. There's this thing where he really is just a rhythm master. Talk about that, because you guys did some duo moments at those shows when it was just you and him. Talk to us about rhythm and John.
Well, first of all, John is, he loves drums. And one of the things that attract him to visit, and I think he lived in India for a minute, is because of the rhythms and how he dove into that, and how he studied Indian rhythms and learned the rhythm compositions of a lot of those things over there. He knows it very well. So like I said before, it's like working with a guy like that who knows more time signatures than most drummers. It's really a pleasure to work for. I mean, I remember when I first joined the band with Joey D, and I think the first tour I must have threw everything but the kitchen sink at the guy, and he just smiled the whole time. So one night we played, I think it was like a year later or something, and I got tired of I just wanted to cruise, still play the music but just cruise through it. And he looked at me like I stole something from his mother. And he told the audience, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break for a minute. And just that. He pulled me off to the side, and he asked me, like, what's going on? Like, nothing's going on. He goes, why are you playing like that? I'm like, playing like what? I'm just playing the music. He says, well, no, man, you sound like you're just laying back. I'm like, well, I figured out I threw everything but the kitchen sink at this music. I just want to cruise. He says, no, man, that's not what I paid you for. I paid you to go out there and play your balls off, And, and normally when you join a band, that's the first thing they tell you to do is not to play,
Overplay, yeah.
But, the more you play for him, I mean, in a tasteful way, he really enjoys it, And that's why we got along so great, is because I understood where he was coming from, and when you play with the guys, like no bars off, it's balls to the walls, play for the gods. That's the way he explains it.
Sure.
But again, I had heard that story. I was going to ask you about that. So that's true.
Yeah. That's a great story. But for him, it's like, I think he's really attracted to rhythms and and if you listen to the way he phrases some of his licks, it's all rhythm based.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's percussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I caught you guys at the Bottom Line, with Joey. And yeah, I remember you broke into some things like that where you and him would just go off for a while, and it's incredibly advanced rhythmic ideas. So it's great to hear from the inside. I'll put you on the spot because it's a time when we don't get to hear everything. Have you heard this new record, Liberation Time?
Yeah.
Oh, you did. Give us your impressions on that.
I mean, it's a great record. It's another one of those records where John just sit and wrote his back off, and he when you join his bands, he normally write music based on the individuals that are there, and that's another thing I like about him. He just don't put guys together and just throw some music at it and just see what happens. He thinks of the musicians that he's playing with or the guys that he have with him, and then he write things. Based on what you do, what you can bring to it.
That's fantastic.
So cool.
And so before you played with them, you saw Mahavishnu, which doesn't get better than that, but give us an idea when you saw John after that. Like which of the groups did you see?
Let me see. We were at North Sea, I think it was. And that's when he had Danny Gottlieb, I think. Let me see. Yeah. It was before Danny Gottlieb. Wait a minute.
So the 80s, Mahavishnu volume, whatever?
No, this was his band. It wasn't the Mahavishnu.
Okay.
And he had just snatched Jim Beard. Wow. He brought Jim Beard into that band, and I was working with special effects, so that was the 80s. So I think it was like 80. Let me see. I came out of P-Funk in 84. So this must have been like 85. And I saw him, and I walked over to him at this, I think it was at the hotel restaurant. And I gave him a note. And I think the note said something about, I'm your next drummer.
That's great.
He read it. He looked at it, and he just looked at me. Yeah, well, And I just walked away, thinking, well, that was it. And then he saw me. We played at this festival called the Guitar Festival, I think it was, in Spain, Seville, Spain. And that's on video, by the way. And the band was George Duke, Stanley Clarke. That night it was, like I said, I think we played the jazz night. So it was George Duke, Stanley Clarke, John McLaughlin, Larry Coryell, George Benson, and Paco de la Cia.
Wow.
And a few others. It was a big lineup. I can't remember everybody. And he saw me there, and he came over and he asked me for my information and asked, would I play with him or do some recording with him or something, he asked. And I'm like, you know, my mind like, God, you better believe I would, you know, but I'm trying to be cool, you know. So, you know, I gave him my information and thought, you know, like that's going to be the end of it. He'll never call me, you know. I said about 2-3 months later, I get a phone call from him. Hey, bro, how you doing? This is John, you know, blah, 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 blah. And like he was asking about doing some recording with him. No. He asked me to join a band that he's putting together with Joey. That's what it was.
Okay.
That's how that started. And then I said, sure. And we, next thing I know, we were in London at some famous rehearsal studio over there. Steve Howell, the guitar player for Yes, was in the basement. We're rehearsing right next door to me with names these days. I'm getting old. We were rehearsing right next to the guitar player for Led Zeppelin,
Jimmy Page.
Jimmy Page. We're right next. How can I forget him? We're right next door to Jimmy Page, and I'm in the tea room because John wants to show Joey a part for this tune we're going to play. So I'm sitting out there drinking, and this guy is like in the tea room freaking out about some guitar teacher that was next door to him. And I didn't even look up at that point. I'm drinking tea, reading this drum magazine. And everybody who came in that he knew, he was explaining to this guy about this guy next door to him, who's a famous guitar player, blah, 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 blah. And the guy's wife walked in, and he's explaining to his wife about this guitar guy. And she said, well, so what? You're Jimmy Page. And I looked up. I looked at him. And the reason why I didn't recognize him at first, because his hair was like combed back into a bun. And the guy's head was big. He had a big head. And I'm looking at him like, wow, that is Jimmy Page. And I went over and, introduced myself and explained to him, I'm John's drummer and blah, 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 blah. Is it true that John was John, one of your teachers? And he said, yeah. And I'm like, well, do you want to see him? He said, absolutely. So I went in and told John that Jimmy Page was out there. Actually, I asked him, did you teach or did you give Jimmy Page guitar lessons? And he said, yeah. I'm like, well, the guy's out there. He's here. He's out in front of the door waiting for you to come out. John had a few words, which I'm not going to say right now about it. He said a few things, and I'm like, okay, well, he's out there. It's like, oh yeah, tell him I'll be out. Okay. So I go back and I told John, I told Jimmy that John, be out, and I went back into the tea room. And after so many minutes or went by, and I go back, and Jimmy's still standing there, and I'm like, well, did John come out? He said, no. That's crazy. So I go back in the room, stop what they were doing. In fact, I think they weren't even doing anything. They were just standing there talking, John and Joey. I'm like, John, Jimmy's out there waiting for you to come out. Why didn't you come out? He says, what, he's still waiting? I'm like, yeah, he's still waiting. So he goes out, man. As soon as John opened the door, Jimmy jumps into his arms, or just grabbed him, actually, and hugged him. And, man, I wish I had a camera when that happened, because you could see the love Jimmy had for John. It was like, he was just smiling from ear to ear, and he was just all excited. And John was like taken off guard, because he wasn't expecting that kind of reception, And they got to talking, and I'm standing there, like a bump on a log. Wish I had a camera to film this crap, But I did. I asked Jimmy once they were over, what was he doing there? And I think he said he was going out on tour with Robert Plant. So he was next door to check all his amps to see what's working, before he went out on tour, to see what's working that he can take.
Oh, sure.
And I asked him, could I come in the room? And I went in there, and it's like, I kid you not, it was a whole room full of like Marshalls, Orange, and some other cabinets. And they still had the extensils on them, like the Led Zeppelin's extensils.
Wow.
Had Yardbirds, there's like a history of amps in that room, And I took a picture, or asked him, could I took a picture holding the guitar, the double neck guitar, with the amps. And I do have a picture of it. You know, it was like a whole stage across the back, just Marshalls and all kind of stuff. And it went down to the end of the wall, and then it went down towards the door to the far side of the room on both sides.
Oh my God.
It was insane, man.
Wow.
It was insane.
Dennis, that's
a
so
dream.
interesting because one of the biggest Cobham fans in the world was John Bonham.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
And they were friends.
Yeah.
Through Jeff Ochiltree. In fact, Jeff Ochiltree, as you know, was the roadie for both Birds of Fire and Physical Graffiti tours, I think.
Yeah.
What
you
a
know,
fact.
Jason Bonham told me that as well.
Oh, the Cobham connection. Okay.
That's amazing.
Well,
wow.
That's an amazing story. And
what a story. As a guitar player, I'm just like, stars in my eyes.
What I love about that is it's things that happen on tour with John McLaughlin, you know, where you can't make this stuff up. Wow. You know,
wait a minute. You know what? Wait a minute. I'll tell you another one.
Oh, please. This was a surprise.
I think we were at the Bottom Line or somewhere, and Chevy Chase showed up.
Wow.
And Buddy Miles showed up at the Bottom Line, but Chevy Chase showed up one night, and that's when I learned that Chevy Chase actually played with John McLaughlin. He played keyboards.
What?
Yeah.
When?
Don't ask me.
Explain.
Yeah. I don't know when, because when Chevy told me, actually they were talking about, you know, those days, and I'm looking at the both of them, and I'm like, wait a minute. Is he saying that he actually played with John? And I asked Chevy, did you play with John McLaughlin? He said, yeah. And he said, I asked him, what did you play? He said, I play keyboards. I'm like, get the hell out of here. I didn't even know that, you know. So
that's stunning.
I did not expect that. I think he had a connection to Steely Dan, if I'm not mistaken. Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
But McLaughlin, I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's.
You guys remember Al Frank and Tom Davis on the original SNL?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I would go to McLaughlin concerts, and frequently I'd run into Tom Davis, who was one of the first writers for SNL. And he was a huge McLaughlin fanatic.
Yeah.
So you
never
know.
The legacy of John and folks, we're running up on our end of our show here, but this is all beautiful because, again, it's just saying that it's kaleidoscopic. This man has impacted so many people. So many people have played with him, and we have a nice surprise to have one of his band members here tonight.
You don't know, man. You know, being with him, I'm just now. My mind is like collecting all these things I remember. You know, like the night that Jeff Beck showed up, and Jeff Beck is like, I mean, he's in awe. I mean, John is like a father to him. You know, sort of in the music sense. You know, and you know, you could see the respect. You know, like the deepest respect that Jeff had for John, and also. We were in Germany. That I remember. We were in Germany, and I saw Steve Lukather backstage, and didn't know he was in the audience. Because what I remember, Steve was supposed to have been in London producing Jeff Beck's record. So I'm asking, "What the hell are you doing here?" And he's like, "Oh man, this is the closest you were gonna come where I could see you guys." So he flew from London to Germany to see us.
Oh wow!
And he's standing there at backstage. With it was either a John McLaughlin record or a Lifetime. Mahavishnu record, and he's waiting for John to come out so he can sign it. But
yeah, he's a fan.
Big fan.
I know Luke. Yeah.
So I go back in there again. John, you know, Steve Lukather. He said, "Who?" I'm like, "Steve Lukather." You know, he said, "Who's Steve Lukather?" I'm like, I'm trying to explain to him about Toto and all.
Yeah.
He had no clue, man. He was.
Oh, it's so funny.
But he came out, he came out and it's just seeing how people how they act or respond to him, the guitar players.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can see who, who's the guru,
Yeah, the king. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was before we have to go. I was mentioning a show earlier, San Francisco. I saw you guys, the Great American Music Hall, and see if you remember this. Zakir Hussain came and sat in.
Yeah.
And Narda Michael Walden came and sat in. I remember I mentioned the show earlier. Like, people are talking about this show decades later. So you had all these guys on one side. You guys did a trade-off. It was like Dennis, Zakir, Narda.
Ouch.
And it was
crazy.
Somehow
I got Narda to play my drum kit.
Yeah.
But I forgot.
That's right. You were on timbales, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I remember.
Forgot there was no monitor back there. So he played, and I played timbales standing right next to Zakir. And Zakir had one drum. Remember that?
Yeah, he had a single handheld drum. Yeah.
He held one drum and wore both of us out with one drum.
Yeah.
I picked the timbales up and
amazing.
just walked off the stage. That's what I did. Get it? You got it.
No, that is what a great story. Well, Dennis, we got to have you back, man, because we decided here at Make Weird Music that what, and they do this with great composers. This is John's 80th year, so I hope we all get out there. He's got some shows planned for later in the year. We wish him the best. We wish them the best in Europe, and we hope that they can do these shows. But we'd love to have you back on Make Weird Music and talk about some of this, but also talk about your albums, your music, and some of the other stuff you've got going on. Because, man, we're so honored to have you here. I've seen you with so many different groups, whether it's Schofield or Steely Dan or just Niacin. So many wonderful tours we've seen you on. And I want to tie that in and say again, one of the points we're making tonight is the explosion, the big bang of Bitches Brew, of that whole era, which John was so crucially a part of, and Silent Way, and how those records and the family tree we can draw, right, with Return of Forever, Weather Report, we just had Chester here, with Mahavishnu, with Zappa's early bands, and all of the threads that you and all of you here keep carrying on, that experimental side, I think, of jazz that's not afraid to bring in some other stuff. So we thank you for being such a huge part of that, Dennis, and stopping by today. Thank you, man.
Thank you very much. And also
great to see you, Dennis. Yeah.
Stay back. But I want to say to Greg, man, I'm listening to you, man.
What?
I'm listening to you.
What?
You're killing, dude. You're really killing.
What?
I really enjoy what you do. I really enjoy what you're doing.
Sir, I can only
doesn't
say
get better than that.
I'm humbled.
Well, keep up the good work, man, because I really enjoy it. I really enjoy what you're doing.
What the hell did you hear?
There you
go. A friend of mine sent me he sent me one tape or something with you're playing on with the band live somewhere.
Well,
and then I believe somebody sent me a CD of a record or something. But yeah, I listened to it, man, and it's like the stuff is really killing.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Coming from you, that means the world.
Thank you, man.
Because I'm a big
How
fan of
cool.
yours, and I have been listening to you since P-Funk. So yeah.
Thank you.
That's beautiful to hear. And the tributaries keep going on. These rivers keep going on, and they flow from the first human who played music, but they're flowing on from this beautiful tradition of jazz and of all the things under that umbrella. I want to close out and remind people, check out this new record. We talked a lot of history here. We had a lot of reminiscences. We had some great stories, and what a special surprise from one of the people who was fortunate to make music with John. But I want to remind you, he's doing it still. He's making music today. He's making music right now. So do check out the new record, Liberation Time. And do check out everything you can over at Abstract Logix, because they got Osnoy, Wayne Krantz, Dennis is on some of the records on here. Etienne Mbappe is there. Our dear friend Alex Makachek is on this label. And you know that you're supporting a little cottage industry when you support a little label like this. And we have a lot of great labels that survive. But I love Shovik's vibe because it's truly global. He's got artists from around the world, but he's been doing the goddess's work here by keeping John and his, hard to categorize music. Shovik's been making sure it gets out there, and we really appreciate that. And we want you to close that circle. Support all the little independent labels, but really this one especially, because it's got some incredible things going on. Greg, thank you for being here. People, check out bendianmusic.com. Check out, is it mahavishnuproject.com?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mahavishnu. And we have our assistant, Sharon, is on YouTube. If you can put that link there. Mahavishnuproject.com.
A lot of videos on YouTube. Yeah.
Videos on YouTube. Just punch in Mahavishnu Project. It's all there. Alex, thank you so much for being here. AlexSkolnick.com. This man is
at Alex Skolnick for all my Instagram and all that stuff.
It's you inspire me, my brother, because you were always just making it happen. And in the interest of what we're saying, that these things are happening right now, Alex is right now came out of the studio. This new band, Pact, which again stands for Percy
Jones,
Alex, Kenny Grahowski, and Tim Motzer. PAKT. Go look them up.
Percy Jones, the one.
Percy Jones, of course, right? I shouldn't assume people know. Percy Jones, Alex Skolnick. So, again, John's influence on us all for the music, for the spirit, to just keep going. And at 80, if any of us can do half of the work that this man does, then we'll be happy. Dennis, also, man, do you have something coming right up, Dennis? Is there something we can tell people? You have a record you're working on, or is there any?
No. Well, I'm doing a lot of recording, but not for my own private thing, but working on other people's projects right now.
Okay.
Everything I can do at this point with COVID being out there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And okay, well, DennisChambers.com, folks, and we can put that in the chat. Follow these folks. Stick with us here at Make Weird Music, because we're going to keep presenting the stuff that excites us. That's
great to see you, Dennis. Great to see you, Alex. Thanks.
Yeah, you too, Greg.
Greg, same Greg.
This was amazing, Andre. This was beyond. This was
Alex. I know we played together, Alex. I know we played together once, but I want a rematch.
Oh,
it's on. Once was not enough. Yeah, and
that's a problem.
For about a week, we had an awesome week together at this event and at this base camp. But yeah, I'm down. So all right, let's make it happen.
I love it. That's what we do at Make Weird Music. Bringing them together. Thanks a lot, folks. And thanks for everyone in the chat. Y'all were amazing. Some amazing comments, and all love. Fans of all of you players, and people saying how they've heard some new stuff tonight. So that's great. Go study this man's music. Keep visiting Make Weird Music. Please subscribe, and we'll see you soon. My name's Andre Chumley. By the way, I'm at Guitar Tour. You can find me that way on Twitter, Instagram, just like it sounds, @Guitar Tour, because I tour a lot when there's a guitar in the room. We'll see you soon. Guys, you should stay on, and I'm going to hang up right here.
Okay.
See you, YouTube people.
See you, chatters.